From SBI's Executive Briefing Center in Dallas, Texas, the most watched and listened to content in B2B sales and marketing, it's the SBI Podcast with your host, Matt Shares.
Welcome to SBI TV, a weekly show dedicated to helping you make your number. Today we're going to discuss an exciting topic and one that actually is of personal importance to me, and that's the journey from being a head of sales to becoming a CEO. It seems that with a few notable exceptions, most CEOs do not come from the sales ranks. Instead, they tend to come from finance or operations or from product. At least that's what we've seen in the marketplace. So this is the topic, and this show is going to talk about how the sales leader can find his or her way to the top job. And from the feedback we've received, it's an important one for listeners and viewers. So I'm your host, Matt Shares. I'm the CEO of SBI, former sales leader. Joining me today in the studio, a good friend of mine, Scott Tapp, who is another former sales leader who made it to the CEO. So Scott, first off, congratulations on making that ascent, and good to see you.
Well, good to see you. It was a hard-fought road to get there, I guess you could say.
Yeah, no kidding. So,
and always fun.
By way of introduction, it would be great for people just to know a little bit about your background from running sales and the path that you took. And then I know during the show, you and I are going to kind of get into some of the key milestones of where you went. But just introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll get into it. Yeah.
So path for me, I started my career somewhat differently in investment banking originally. A lot of analytical stuff and learning about financials and how to maneuver a business on the financial side. I then was recruited into a venture capital firm and multiple family offices and multiple venture capital firms, and different world of learning about investing in companies. And very early in my career, quite frankly, I'm still in my 20s, and what a great experience to sit on boards and sit with some real experienced operators to learn about businesses. But I myself, sitting across from people running businesses, wanted to sit on that side of the table for a while. So I found myself getting into an operational role. Started in business development for a public company, and that moved into multiple general manager roles. Ultimately, I ran worldwide field operations, which you can consider product marketing, sales, and customer experience, customer success, for a little over $500 million public company. So a little bit of my background experience, it was totally fun. That took me then into the CEO world for the first time,
So what I thought would be interesting, and why we're going to do this show, is the experience that Scott had that I believe he can share with many that are in a sales leadership role, maybe ascending to the head of sales job and then saying, well, then what? And if you have this desire to sort of go from salesperson to business person, there's no better way to do that than expanding your purview. So if you're watching or listening out there and you don't want to miss our weekly show, to access our content library, if you're an iPhone user, just download the SBI app, go to the App Store, search for Sales Benchmark Index. You can use your iPhone then to get notifications and listen to us while you work out, on your commute, or while you're standing in line at the airport. So let's jump into the questions. So Scott, first thing that I always look at when people react to, hey, what does it take to become a CEO? This whole concept of thinking strategically, right? Simply said, kind of working on the business. But when you're a sales leader and you're running a series of 90-day sprints to make the quarter, you know that you want to, but you're like, how can I? So I guess talk a little bit about the balancing act between being a head of sales and having the desire to think strategically and work on the business. How did you think through that?
Well, it's not easy. I mean, clearly you're there for one reason, that's to make your number. So
well said. Well said.
I mean, and as a head of sales, and it goes with a lot. But so how do you think strategically? I think part of that is you learn it from experience, from roles that you've had in the past. Again, for me, starting in investment banking or starting in the venture business, it opened my eyes and mind to the financial side of a business, which is super important. And then I worked my way into a sales role, and I could apply that financial acumen into sales and think of it very analytically. Again, you're trying to make a number and all the things and the levers that you need to turn in order to do that. So that to me is, I mean, and the other side, outside of just you're running sales, you got to think strategically. You got to think about all the levers in a business that make a difference. right? I mean,
Yep.
market, competition, there's so much product, competitive differentiation. There's so many things that come together for that business for you to be successful. So that to me is how you have to think about, okay, how do I look at this thing strategically outside of just doing my day-to-day sales role?
So having the advantage that I had of getting to know you over the last few years, seeing you as a CEO, seeing you as a head of sales and running all of Worldwide Field Ops, and watching you and
Age? You've been watching me age? Is that what you're saying?
definitely watch you age. You have more gray hair now, but I had no hair when we met, and I have none now, so you can't judge. But something you spoke about is you got to think about your peers. So maybe if we rewind the clock back to the PGI days, and you've got functional peers in finance, you've got functional peers in product, you got functional peers, CFO. How would you advise your sales leader peers to leverage the other people to help them build out some of their gaps, blind spots, if you will, to go from sales leader to business leader, but while they're in the sales leader role?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So how to build out your own gaps, I think is really what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, your peers can very much help you.
Yep.
You know, that's the great thing about having a great team. And not only your peers, you know, the people above you can also help you, and the people below you, especially if you're hiring great people. So as I think about how to broaden your capabilities, first of all, you got to be super curious, right? Curiosity of understanding different things and understanding things that maybe you just don't know. You know, you got to know your strengths and weaknesses or your gaps.
Yep.
So when I think about expanding my capabilities as a sales leader and looking at other areas, you absolutely want to spend time with those team members. But take yourself out of time where you're just in a typical meeting. Spend time with them from an educational perspective.
Yeah.
You know, to me, one of the best people I would always, and I kind of lean that way because I'm a little more analytical, but I would spend time with my CFO.
Yeah.
You know, the CFO oftentimes knows what's going on in the business, multiple divisions, cost centers, whatever it may be. And spending time with the CFO to understand what's happening, what's in his head that he's worried about. And it creates a good dialogue. And by the way, befriending your CFO, the sales and the CFO can sometimes butt heads because my numbers are always more accurate than his numbers and vice versa. It goes a long ways. And also you'll find that relationship will help him start thinking about how he can help you improve your business as well. So it can be a wonderful thing.
So it's as we wrap up this segment, it's interesting you talk about the CFO because historically the sales leader sees the CFO as an enemy, right? They're deal prevention. They are pay the reps less. They are you have too many reps and look at all these people that aren't selling anything and why does it take us so long to ramp these guys to full productivity? Like all of that stuff. And what I'm hearing from you is go the other way and lean into that because I agree with you in terms of a place to learn how to be a business person. Yeah. If you've been a card carrying sales leader from, you know, or a rep all the way up, that is the place to go. Would you go so far as to have the CFO vet your strategy in terms of go to market, like as a way to extend the olive branch?
Oh, absolutely. Look, if first of all, the CFO can bring a lot of insight and value into what you're doing. But you have to have an open mind and you have to allow that to happen. And you have to have a good relationship and communicate. Look, you want to have that person help you in this role. But for me, we would do a lot of things. We would bring the CFO into our big deal exercises to help him think about how can we be creative to maybe get to a price point, if it's a price point or something that we need to do to win this deal. And that was great. We would have, I would bring in my CFO on my monthly meetings to hear us talk about how we're doing, cadence, you know, how the business is doing, pipeline related stuff, just so they're also aware. And it also helps when the CFO knows your business just like you know theirs. So they understand the complexities of sales and what that takes and how difficult that can be. Because oftentimes you'll find the CFO saying, wow, I don't know how you do it. Right? And that's a good thing. You want that type of relationship with them.
And takeaway number one, if I was in the audience listening and said, I think I want to be a CEO, how am I leveraging my peers, functional peers, who can help educate me on what it is they do? Because when you're the CEO, you're responsible for all of it. So you've got to have awareness. You don't have to do it all, but you have to understand it all. So that was a big takeaway in terms of what Scott spoke about. Second thing is really keying in on the CFO in terms of really understanding the business. Historically, salespeople don't come from an analytical background. They shy away from numbers and details and whatnot. But that appreciation truly of how money gets made, and when you think about being an allocator of human capital and also real capital when you're a CEO, is critical. So, Scott, always appreciate seeing you, man. Thank you.
Great seeing you, Matt. Thanks for having me, man.
Very, very helpful. And to those of you that are out there watching and listening, I appreciate your support. And I know that my team certainly does, because you have a choice on where you put your eyes and ears. So the fact that you'd spend a few minutes with us means the world to me. So until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number. Great job.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on the studio, SBI's Executive Briefing Center, our team, or to schedule a workshop, please visit salesbenchmarkindex.com.